Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you once again for clicking on this episode of Rank the Movies. Now, I know we had a weird month last night in April. We had 5 different franchises we talked about, and there were a couple of those live streams I did talking about the movies I've never seen before, and inevitably my hatred of All About Eve. I still hate that movie. Just so we're all clear, All About Eve is bad. So, we had the April showers of franchise month. Now, what type of May flowers did it give us? Well, those flowers are directors. So over the next 4 weeks, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite directors and talk about a bunch of their movies. It's kind of a ranking, it's kind of not, all in all. Now, if you watch my top 100, then you know my favorite director is clearly Edgar Wright. Edgar Wright is a great director. All 5 of his movies he's directed ended up in my top 100. I'm not going to talk about Edgar Wright other than to remind you I like them in this order. World's End is my favorite, followed by Shaun of the Dead, Baby Driver, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and finally Hot Fuzz. Alright, I've talked about Edgar Wright. Let's move on to a different director. So, this week I decided to talk about another one of the great directors out there that I've really enjoyed a lot of his work, and that is Barry Sonnenfeld. Barry Sonnenfeld was a cinematographer when he started off in the career, filmed a lot of the Coen Brothers movies, their earlier stuff, and then got the chance to direct his own work. So this week, I'm going to talk about that work he directed all on his own, starting with RV. I didn't realize I had a dead screen there. This is going to be a very bad video, because that's what happens. Bad videos. Alright, so we have RV. This is a Robin Williams vehicle, which is hilarious because, you know, RV, recreational vehicle, Robin Williams vehicle. Ha 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 ha! I'm full of humor. This is a Robin Williams movie. Basically, Robin Williams takes his family on a cross-country road trip in an RV so he can go to a job interview. It's a fairly amusing movie. I enjoyed it. It's not one I went, man, I'm going to watch this so many more times, but it was definitely worth watching. It had some very genuinely funny moments in it, and it was worth the experience. If you've never sat down with RV, definitely check it out. Robin Williams is so good in this movie, like he is in most of the movies, and we're going to talk about more Robin Williams later this month, as other directors have directed this genius of a man. But Barry Sonnenfeld, he got him in RV. Alright, next up, let's look at Men in Black 2, my least favorite of the Men in Black trilogy. Of the original movies, of course, it's no longer a trilogy with the Men in Black International, which is or is not a bad movie, but Barry Sonnenfeld didn't direct it, so it doesn't make this list. Men in Black 2 is my least favorite Men in Black film. You have Will Smith playing Jay, who is now the more experienced MIB agent who has to find K, played by Tommy Lee Jones, deneuralize him to get information that he has. It's not a bad movie. It's just, there are some way better films out there, even in the Men in Black series, and obviously Barry Sonnenfeld directed all 3 of them, so I'm going to get to the other 2 and where they fall on this list of the quality of movies he's directed. But Men in Black 2, it's a decent film. I like it. I like it in the context of the Men in Black series, which is what it is now. It'd actually fall into a franchise if I wanted to do it for Franchise Month, but I'm covering 3 out of the 4 movies now, so why do it for another Franchise Month? I like Men in Black. Men in Black 2, it's a pretty decent movie. It's got its moments. It genuinely has some really good moments in it. And it's a genuinely enjoyable film. Alright. Addams Family Values is next. This is, of course, the sequel to The Addams Family. Barry Sonnenfeld got to direct this movie, which, you know, he only got the 2 Addams Family movies because then they did the TV spin-off with Tim Curry that never materialized in anything, and then they got the animated reboot. That happened just last year. This one continues the story of the Addamses. It focuses again on Fester, played by Christopher Lloyd. This is Raul Julia's, one of his last films he did before he died. I believe Street Fighter is actually the last movie he did before he died. But this is one of them. Gomez and Morticia have a new son named Pubert, and Wednesday and Pugsley don't really get along with him, so they hire a nanny. Fester falls in love with the nanny, and this leads to the fact that the nanny is actually a Black Widow killer who is just wanting to kill Fester to get at the Addams family fortune. You know, pretty typical kind of standard movie. I like this movie. It's an enjoyable film, especially if you're sitting down with the first one. There's no reason not to sit down with the sequel. None whatsoever. It's a fun film, and it definitely takes what the first one did and does so much better with it. Next up, we have Men in Black 3, Back in Time. This is a time travel movie. In case Back in Time doesn't help you figure that one out, it's a time travel movie. Back in Time means time travel. In this one, Jay has to travel back in time to prevent Kay's death, so that so time can go the way it's supposed to, and not have a huge alien invasion happen in the present. I like this one. I think they did a really good job with it. Being it was the third movie in the series, there was such a long gap between Men in Black 2 and Men in Black 3, I think they did a great job with it. I think they waited for a solid script, they got a solid script, and they just went with it. And Josh Brolin playing a young Tommy Lee Jones is awesome. He does such a good job in this film. I really enjoy this story, and it's such a good movie. It's worth watching by itself, along with watching it with the other two movies in the series. Like I said, it's a good movie. I like it. I liked it more than Men in Black 2, and that's really cool when series do that, where they can have the dull movie and swing back up to make another good movie, to make something better than the previous one. I like when series can do that, and Men in Black did it. Then they made Men in Black International, which kind of falls off the scattergraph of what is a good Men in Black film. Alright, next up, honestly, this list isn't long. Barry Sonnenfeld doesn't have that many movie credits, and I've seen most of them. I haven't seen all of them. So they're not all here, because I haven't actually seen them all. But I really enjoy this next one. It's Wild Wild West. It's such a fun movie. It is such a bad movie, but it's such a fun movie, it makes up for it. You got Will Smith, Barry Sonnenfeld, 4 movies he's done with Will Smith. You got Will Smith, and you got Kevin Kline, and then you got Kenneth Branagh. It is such a well-acted movie. It's a very well-designed movie. It's a fun movie, and I get it. I get the people who go, well, Men in Black, Wild Wild West is a bad movie. Giant spider. It's a giant frickin' spider. It's amazing. I like the giant spider. You should like the giant spider. We should all like the giant spider. Because it's cool. No, it's a super fun film. It's based on a TV show of the same name. Will Smith plays James West, Kevin Kline plays Artemis Gordon, and Kenneth Branagh plays Dr. Lovelace. Basically, it's a Western, but with some high-tech gadgets and some spy film elements to it. I enjoy it. It's a guilty pleasure movie, but I really like this movie. Alright, let's talk about Get Shorty. Get Shorty is so much fun. You got John Travolta playing a Shylock, which is basically a hitman money collector for a mob, who goes to Las Vegas to collect on a debt, and he goes to Las Vegas to collect on a debt, collects the money from the debt he is owed, and then goes to Los Angeles to collect on a different debt, because he gets asked by a friend to collect on this other debt. In Los Angeles, he becomes a movie producer, because he finds a guy with a great script. Gene Hackman is the guy with the great script. He meets Rene Russo, who we'll talk about later in a different movie Barry Sonnenfeld directed. He meets Rene Russo, and Danny DeVito plays the uptight actor, Martin Weir, who is kind of the overpaid, exhilarated actor who wants only what is the best and will agree to only what is the best, and so you have to kind of trick him into it. John Travolta is great in this movie. It's a fun film. The sequel is really good too, Be Cool. Barry Sonnenfeld didn't direct that one, so I'm not going to talk about it. But Get Shorty, it's a great movie. I tried reading the book it is based after, and I cannot get through the first 100 pages of that book. It does not interest me, but I love watching this movie. I sit down with this movie and just enjoy myself. So Get Shorty, it is such a good movie. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. Now, where would I be if I didn't talk about Men in Black? Had to fall on this list somewhere. Now, I touched on Men in Black back during my Marvel, top 10 Marvel, non-MCU Marvel movies, because it is a Marvel movie, so are the other two in the series, and international. But Barry Sonnenfeld directed it as well, so we're back to Men in Black. I've always enjoyed Men in Black. I think it's a great concept. I think Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith play their roles to a T in this movie. It's got a great plot and a great script, and it's just really well acted all the way through. Most people have seen Men in Black. I've talked about Men in Black. So check out that Marvel video if you want to hear more of me talking about Men in Black. But it's a great movie, and Barry Sonnenfeld did such a great job with it. Alright, so next up we're going to talk about the first movie Barry Sonnenfeld ever made. The first one he was allowed to direct, and that is Addams Family, which stands out as one of the best movies he's made. Again, he was working for the Coen brothers as their primary cinematographer when he got asked to do the Addams Family. He got the offer to direct, and he said yes. And he did such a good job. This is such a well-cast movie. I mentioned in values, we've got Rod Julia, we've got Christopher Lloyd, we've got Angelica Houston, we've got Christina Ricci in this movie. Not to mention everyone else who plays a role in this film. It is such a well-done look at the Addams family and those characters. It's hard not to appreciate this movie and its whole look. I mean, Addams Family Value has the same look, but that's a sequel. It's going to have a similar look. This is the original, and it has such a spectacular look to it that you just can't help it. It's very well written. It's a very well acted piece. Barry Sonnenfeld really did a great job with this movie, putting all the pieces together. Because as the director, that's what he's doing. He's kind of taking, these actors and this script and this set and this light, and he's putting it all together to make one vision. And I think his vision turned out really good. I've always enjoyed The Addams Family. It's always a classic in my book. But it's not my favorite Barry Sonnenfeld film. No. My favorite Barry Sonnenfeld film has to be Big Trouble. It's in my top 100. I can't not sit here and talk about Barry Sonnenfeld films and not talk about Big Trouble, which is why we're talking about Renee Russo again, because here she is, again, in this movie. It's based on the Dave Barry book, which is an amazing book. I love the Dave Barry book. Read the Dave Barry book. Read all of his novels. There's some good times there. But yeah, I've talked about it in the top 100. You've got Tim Allen plays an ad executive who gets brought into this world of randomness, which includes but is not limited to a bomb being brought onto a plane because two idiots think it's a safe with gold inside of it, or treasures. It is one of those pieces where it's just a bunch of different characters being slammed together and fun and funny things happen. It didn't do very well because of 9/11 and the fact it's a piece where a bunch of people get thrown together and funny shit happens. Those movies are hard to gauge. Some people really like them, some people hate them. Sometimes they turn out great, other times they turn out bad. This one turned out great. I love Big Trouble. I have always loved this movie. It's an hour and a half you won't regret spending. So, now I've talked about my favorite directors. Well, I've talked about Barry Sonnenfeld. I'll be talking about a great director next week, one who people love a lot of his movies, and that is Steven Spielberg. I just feel like he is kind of that quintessential director that you got to talk about if you're doing this, and it's Spielberg. So I'll be doing him next week. Leave me some comments if you got any questions. If maybe I missed a Barry Sonnenfeld film that you really like and I've never seen before, let me know. There's a dang good chance I'll check it out. I know he has one with Kevin Spacey called 9 Lives. I have it on my Vudu or stream. I have it on a streaming service. I just haven't watched it yet. I know that's out there. I can't think of what other movies I've missed of his. But yeah, hit me in the comments, hit subscribe if you want to see more just like it. Check out some of the past videos. There's some good stuff there. Otherwise, I'll talk to you next week with some Steven Spielberg.